Hi, Girl Scouts. It's great to see everybody. Welcome to Inspiring Futures. So my name is Katie Herstein, and I'm the Program and Events Manager at Girl Scouts of Colorado. And in my job, I get to be the lucky one to get to host this virtual series where we introduce our Girl Scouts to a bunch of accomplished women in a variety of professions so you can begin to get inspired about what your future might look like. We've had quite a few different presenters on, and we have a YouTube channel if you'd like to go back to that and watch some of the recordings and see all the wonderful women that we've heard from. So we have a wonderful partner that works with us to bring us this series, and that's College Invest. So College Invest is Colorado's college savings program, and it makes it easy for you to save for your education after high school. So it's basically a fancy way of saying that they exist for one reason, and that's help for you and your families to put away money to save for your inspired future past high school. So it's kind of like a piggy bank, but better, because the money your parents or caregivers or grandparents put into your College Invest savings plan, it grows and grows, and it grows tax-free. So when you take it out to use it for college or any kind of experience past high school, you don't have to pay taxes on it. So it goes even further. So it can be used for college anywhere across the country, or a trade school, or an apprenticeship program, which gives you real world work experience. So we're going to hear a quick message from the CEO of College Invest about what she is hoping you'll get out today.
Hi, I'm Angela Beyer, CEO of College Invest, and welcome to this episode of Inspiring Futures. Through Girl Scouts, you've learned that if you can dream it, you can do it. And here at College Invest, Colorado's education savings program, we help you get there. And you're never too young to begin to imagine your inspired future. So how will you impact this world? Will you run your own business, invent a new technology, or maybe even discover a life-saving cure? But wherever your inspiration takes you, a College Invest savings plan can help make your dreams a reality. Now, prepare to be inspired.
Thank you to Angela. And I'm going to do that. And I just wanted to go through a few housekeeping items. So we are, as you could tell, are recording this session so that we can put it up onto our YouTube channel. And but when I do the recording and then I edit it, I make sure that we don't have any Girl Scouts smiling faces on our recordings. So feel free to share your camera now if you want to, or you can use the chat to communicate, whichever is easier for you. That's fine. So we'd love to see you. So next up is our promise and our law. All right, anybody want to unmute? You're more than welcome to join me. So on my honor, I will try to serve God and my country, help people at all times, and to live by the Girl Scout law. And the Girl Scout law is, I will do my best to be honest and fair, friendly and helpful, considerate and caring, courageous and strong, responsible for what I say and do, and to respect myself and others, respect authority, use resources wisely, make the world a better place, and be a sister to every Girl Scout. So I am one more person to admit, and then we will, here we go. Got her in. Great. So next up is to introduce our guests. So we have archaeologists here with us today. We have Jessica Erickson and Jasmine Saxon, and they are local Colorado and the Denver area archaeologists. And I will stop sharing my screen and unpin myself so you don't have to look at me again. And there we go. Hi, Jessica. Hi, Jasmine.
Hi. Hello, how's it going?
Awesome. Good to see you. So I've got you both spotlighted, and I will let you introduce yourselves and take it from here.
Awesome. So I'm Jessica Erickson. I'm co-owner of Community Connections, and I am coming to you just as a heads up. I am in a hotel room right now. I am on a project here in Wyoming. So just to let you know, the internet is a little spotty. So if I cut out, Jasmine will come back in, but just wanted to give you a heads up. So Jasmine, take it away. Oh,
I was out with a bunch of kiddos today doing mock digs out in Golden. So you can tell I'm a little bit in my field moment. So we're so excited to talk to you tonight. Actually, we have a presentation that we prepared for you. So let me see if I can get that up here for you all. Let's see here. We're going to do this. So while I'm getting this presentation up, we would love to know, where is everybody from? Is everybody from Colorado, or you guys are all over the place? If you could unmute yourselves and let us know, we'd love to hear from you.
Originally
in the chat
Texas,
too.
but we moved to Colorado about a year ago.
Okay, so you moved to Colorado. I saw something in the chat from a bunch of different places. New Jersey, Texas.
Yeah.
Cool.
USA or Virginia.
Virginia, okay. Awesome.
Amazing.
Okay, so everybody see that?
Love
It. Okay.
Yep, we can see it.
Okay, cool. Awesome. All right, so we today are going to talk about archaeology. So if you don't know what archaeology is, that's totally okay. We're going to tell you all about it today. So we're going to talk about first, what is archaeology? We're going to talk about where you can do archaeology. And then we're going to talk about, Jess and I are going to use one of our projects that we've been working on recently to talk about, like, what does archaeology actually look like in the real world? And then we're going to talk about how you can get involved in archaeology. So I'm going to talk a little bit about myself. So I got interested in archaeology when I was about 12 years old. So some of you are definitely that age. I was fortunate enough to go overseas, and I visited the UK. So I visited England, Ireland, and Wales. And it was so cool because I got to go to all these like really neat castles, and I got to kiss the Blarney Stone. So if you don't know what that is, it's in Ireland, and you have to do this like really crazy thing where you like bend backwards and like you like hold on to these bars and you like kiss the Blarney Stone. And there's just this stone in the castle wall, and it's crazy, but it's supposed to bring you good luck and like all these fanciful things. So when I was 12, I was like, this is where I want to be. So I did that, and I got to do all these like really cool things. I got to see Roman baths. Like, it just blew my mind. And so I thought, traveling and doing archaeology, like doing all this history stuff is like really cool, and I love it. So how can I make this a career? And so I decided that I just wanted to study history, but not in like behind a desk way. I really wanted to study history in an active way. And so my dad, who's a pretty smart guy, he was like, I think this might be archaeology, because archaeology is studying humans. And I loved like studying the castles and like looking at all of that stuff. And so I decided that maybe I would want to be interested in something like that. So he got me this cool magazine all about archaeology. And that's when I decided I was going to be an archaeologist. And I remember going to lunch. I think I was in 8th grade maybe. And I went to lunch and I was like, I want to be an archaeologist. It's going to be great. And everyone was like, what the heck is that? Like, I don't even know what an archaeologist is. So we're super excited to have you here today so we can talk all about archaeology and what it is. So what ends up happening, because we're talking a little bit about college, right? And like what you all want to do in the future. And so I want to share a little bit about my career path. So what I did was I did, high school. I graduated from high school. And then I enrolled in an undergraduate program, college, and I studied actually Near Eastern archaeology. So if you think about Israel, that was the area that I studied, like way overseas. And I loved it. And I thought it was really, really cool. And I had a great time. But if you want to study archaeology here or history here in the United States, it's a little bit of a different career path. Usually a lot of times, like we go to graduate school to get our master's for archaeology. It's not always required because you can also work in archaeology with a lot of experience behind you, not necessarily school, but it does help kind of round out some of those things. So I ended up going and getting my undergraduate, got my graduate degree. So I have my master's. And then I started working in the field and just working for a company doing regular archaeology stuff. And then Jess and I met. And we started talking about how we kind of wanted to reinvent the field of archaeology and talk about more community-driven things. So we're gonna get into that later, so don't worry about it right now. But that's kind of where I ended up getting my master's. And then so I went to University of Denver here in Colorado and got my master's there. And so I jumped in the world of archaeology. And my most favorite part of archaeology is actually finding the artifacts. And I think Jess is totally going to agree with this. But finding the artifacts, you all, like artifacts are what people have made. And Jess is going to get into this in a little bit. But, you know, picking up something that someone has held a very long time ago, like if you can think like way older than your grandparents, like their grandparents, okay? Like this is old stuff. And you pick it up and you're like the first person in maybe 200 years or more to pick this up. It feels really cool because you can create this whole kind of fun story about like why these things were left behind, who was using them, and why it matters. And so we're going to continue talking about that as we go through our presentation. And I'm going to let Jess here, let her talk about a little bit more about her journey.
Yeah. So my name is Jessica, like I said. And I got interested in archaeology a couple different ways. My dad was very interested in history, so I had that base layer foundation. And I'm going to assume almost nobody on this call has ever seen the movie The Mummy, but The Mummy is a movie that came out when I was younger, and I totally fell in love with anything dealing with Egypt or archaeology, anything like that. It's equivalent now to maybe like Dora the Explorer or something like that. So it is a super fun movie, and I wanted to travel the world and see all that I could see. So how that kind of brought me into my career path is I started asking around, and I was like, how can I mix travel, history all together in different cultures? And once I started exploring that question a little bit more, one thing happened after another where it became archaeology was going to be that thing. So, I mean, today, like I'm traveling, I'm in Wyoming right now and traveled all over the place since. So it brought me to my dream of doing that. And so I went to, as Jasmine had been saying earlier, she went to college. I went to college and got my undergrad at Colorado State University up in Fort Collins. So had a wonderful time. I loved it. I still talk to many of the professors there. And I decided to do from college, I went straight into the field. So I've technically not done my master's degree, but what helped me in college so much was making connections with the teachers, making connections with other students. I have gotten almost every job that I've had in archaeology from professor referrals, from friends, knowing someone else who could hire me. There's always the network of who you know in archaeology really helps you. So you really want to not only do well in school, but then you really want to get to know as many people as possible and go from there. So that's kind of how my career has gone. So I've done about 10 years in the field and have gone all over the West Coast. So I've started off in Alaska all the way down to like New Mexico for a little bit. But yeah, so plenty of cool things have been found. And then once Jasmine and I came together to create Community Connections, we have been doing some really fun things. So I am so excited for you all to learn about archaeology. But I think my favorite part of archaeology definitely is what Jasmine was saying. Like once you pick something up that someone left behind, like someone might have dropped it out of their bag, or someone maybe dropped it intentionally, and then you pick it up. It's like a handshake into the past. So you get to not meet somebody, but you get to understand somebody just a little bit to see what their life was like. So it's very, very fun, very creative in that way. So that's a little bit about me, but we can get started on the rest of the presentation. So we just wanted to tell you what archaeology is not. Archaeology is the study of what humans leave behind. So that has nothing to do with dinosaurs. Dinosaurs are, that's paleontology, which is a wonderful field as well. Paleontologists do all sorts of cool things, and we usually don't run into them because paleontology is at a different level in the earth than where humans leave things behind. So dinosaurs are a little bit lower in the levels. Again, I'm not sure here who knows exactly who Indiana Jones is, but Indiana Jones, Dora the Explorer, that is not archaeology. We do not have boots, and we do not have all the things that Hollywood tells us archaeology is. Another thing that archaeology is not, it's not treasure hunting. So we don't find gold. I wish we did, but no, we don't find gold. But what archaeology, you can go to the next, but what archaeology is what all of us here leave behind and everybody who's lived previous. So it's sometimes a little creepy, but sometimes you do find the people themselves. That has happened many times. And so we also study the tools and the artifacts that people leave behind. And then if you ever go to huge structures across the world, people leave behind buildings, the pyramids of Giza, like the Parthenon, everything like that. There's big buildings that people leave behind, and it's really cool to see what people build and why they build things. So that is a little bit about archaeology.
All right. So in archaeology, we talk about how old things are. So we're going to talk about how old is old, right? So in the US, archaeology covers anything that humans have made or built as long as it's 50 years or older, right? So we won't even look at it as archaeologists if something we find is not older than 50 years. And that's just kind of our standard benchmark. They've come up with that with laws and regulations. But that doesn't necessarily mean that everything that is 50 years or older is significant, because not everything is significant in archaeology. Sometimes, you leave trash and it doesn't really tell us anything. But sometimes we can find really cool artifacts that do tell us something. And those are the ones that we look at. So sometimes we ask ourselves questions like, how old is this thing? Where have we found it? How does it relate to everything around us? So some of the questions we ask that you would like to answer is, how old is the place you live in? Like, think about your house. How old is your house? My house is pretty old. My house was built in 1921. So it's over 100 years old. So that's historic. That means that here on my property, I could actually find artifacts, which is what people used and created. I could find them in my backyard, actually. So, archaeology is all around us. And sometimes it even comes in the forms of like family heirlooms, for example, right? People like your grandma might leave jewelry behind that she wants to give on to her daughter, her granddaughter, right? So there's a lot of different things that we can classify as archaeology. It's anything really that humans have left behind. So if you look at these pictures, the one on the very left side, this one is a medicine bottle, and it's made from a certain type of glass that we can date. And we'll talk about this a little bit later in our presentation, but it's made from a certain color of glass that you can date to a certain time period. And that helps us figure out, what people were doing at what time. This one in the middle is a pelican point, is what that is called. And this object is actually like really old. It's like 1,000+ years old. I mean, that's old. It's really old. And it actually came from Canada, and we found it in Colorado. So we know that people are moving things, right? They're taking like whatever objects they would use in everyday life. Like this tool right here is a projectile point or an arrowhead, and they would have used that to hunt. So they're taking their tools and they're moving them throughout different places. And so that's part of archaeology too. We're talking about how people move things around and what types of tools that they use. Here on the very right side of the slide, you'll see a picture with looks like some pieces of plates. Those are really important too, because it talks about what people were doing in an area. So we see these, types of household dishes. We know that people were probably eating and gathering together and cooking food. So all of this plays into archaeology. And when we talk about age, we always look at things that are 50 years or older. So that's what archaeology baseline, like that's what we're always going to look at. If it's not 50 years or older, we're going to throw it out. If it's 50 years or older, we're going to look at it and say, is this significant? Does it tell us something important about our history? So the next thing about archaeology that's important is we talk about artifacts. And I think you've probably heard us use that word. Artifacts are things that people have made with their hands, right? So think about your hands, think about how you can construct buildings or vessels to eat from, right? Everything was made from something in the very beginning. Nowadays we have machines and electronics and all these cool stuff, but way back when we didn't have those things, and everybody made everything by hand, right? And so if you look at these pictures here on the left-hand side, this is actually Jess. She was at one of our project areas where we did some survey, and these are some of the artifacts that she pulled up from our site. And so you can see there's some glass, there's some nails, there's little bits of pieces of things in there. Those are all artifacts because it's something that humans have made. So here in the middle, you'll also see there's another projectile point or arrowhead that we talked about in the last slide. And that's something that humans have made. And then here on the right-hand slide, you'll also see that there is it looks like a wagon wheel. So it's something we've made, right? So we're looking at things that humans touch, make, structures, features, things like that when we do archaeology. So we're going to ask you all, what do you throw away? Because what happens is, like Jess was saying earlier, sometimes things are dropped or left. And that's what we study as archaeologists. A lot of times we study trash is what we really do. And so think about what you throw away. Tell us what you throw away. We have leftovers, we have broken things, old toys. What else would you all throw away in like your everyday life? You can unmute yourself or chat, whatever you want to do. You guys don't throw anything away? I find that I don't think that's true. What do you throw away in your everyday life? Do you throw away paper? Do you throw away dishes? What do you throw away in your life? What do you think? Can't see my chat. Okay. Random papers and containers, paper. Oh, donate toys. Donating is always a good idea. Old food. Okay. I'm reading all these. Let's see here.
I put chicken wings. We do find that in the field often.
Actually, we do.
Yeah.
We do. Yeah. What else do we got here? Clothing, boxes. Yeah. All of those things. Paper. Yeah. So everything that we throw away, it ends up somewhere, right? And so a lot of times, like people in the past, when they would throw away stuff, they didn't really understand about, like trash systems and things like that we have now. Like we go outside and we put things in our trash can. People like 200 years ago, 100 years ago, like didn't really have that. So they would just throw things out their windows, like literally in their backyard. They would just like throw their trash and then like bury it. It's kind of gross, but that's what they would do. And so as archaeologists, we go out and that's what we study. And we learn about people from the past through what they've thrown away. So I love it. I think it's really cool. But if you're a little bit, weirded out about dirt and stuff, I get it. It's okay. So what we're going to talk about next is kind of our archaeological timeline here in Colorado. And Jess is going to explain that to you.
Yeah, so I'm gonna go pretty quickly through this just because it's a little meaty and we don't really need to get into all of it necessarily. When you go into school, if you so choose to go into archaeology, which I highly suggest because it's very, very fun, then you get to learn all the details about different eras in different regions all across the US. So from the archaeological record, this does not necessarily include people's like different religions and different belief systems, but from the record, what we're finding is that there are multiple different stages throughout time. So you'll see here that I do not have the flow of the timelines all together. I just kind of put the major ones in here, just so you can kind of see the differences. So we have Paleo-Indian, which in this region starts at about 10,000 years old. So that is really, really old. Paleo means old. And then we get into there's another stage in there, but then we get into the archaic stage. So archaic pretty much also means old, but we put that in as a very broad timeline from 7,500 BC all the way until 500 AD. And then we'll get into the next timeline in a few slides. But then we have the post-contact, and this is when European settlers came in, and they came in to really change things up in America. And so we've got plenty of different timelines within here too. And now we pretty much just go decade by decade as we all experience. So go on to the next one. All right, so this site is super cool. Paleo stuff is some of the stuff I studied the most in college. And this site is the Lindenmeyer site. And this is one of the oldest known sites within Colorado. So this is just north of Fort Collins. And it is on like the precipice of the high plains and the Rocky Mountains. So, and then the other plains to the southeast. So you have this whole zone coming, like 3 different zones coming together here. And the Smithsonian excavated this in the 1920s and 30s. So there's some really cool stuff that has come out of this area. And that is a bison skull to the left, so that's Bison antiquus, which the bison that we see today, they're big. Bison antiquus is like twice the size of the bison today. So these guys were massive. Anyway, so yeah, we have plenty of Bison antiquus coming from here and people eating them. So anyways, yes, next slide. Perfect, perfect. All right, this site is really cool. This site is Magic Mountain. This is an excavation unit. So if you do become an archaeologist, you get to dig in the dirt, which is one of the best parts of archaeology, in my opinion. You really get to see what people left behind. And so at Magic Mountain, they had a lot of root processing and eating. Like there was more, people weren't traveling as much as they were in the past. So these are people who were staying in one place more. They were making big fire pits and eating a lot of different varieties of vegetables that were around at the time. So you can go to the next slide, please. And Chaco culture. So if anybody has been to the Southwest, Chaco culture is one of the coolest down there. So Mesa Verde, Chaco, all the things where people started really building the structures in this area. So you can see in this picture, there's the kivas, and these used to be basically apartment buildings from basically around 500 to 1,000 years ago. I guess a little bit further than that. But anyways, really cool stuff, beautiful pottery, wonderful different types of farming started here as well. So you can go on to the next one.
One thing about the Chaco culture too is that they built everything in the stone. So like they built these really like amazing cliff dwellings and things like that. So if you're ever in Colorado and you get to check out Southern Colorado, definitely check out the Chaco Canyon. It is absolutely amazing. It will blow your mind for sure. Okay.
Oh yeah, Christy, I see you went to Mesa Verde. It's
Yeah.
so beautiful. And if anybody
Oh.
could make it, it's wonderful. It's a wonderful
It's
thing.
amazing. Yeah.
Okay, so this is a very interesting time in history because this is when the European settlers have definitely come into the area and are starting to influence the traditional ways that are around. So we're definitely starting to see a lot of different technology coming. So arrowheads, basically. Ooh, 90 other national parks and historic monuments Christy has been to. That is impressive. That is really, really cool. Well, the next place you should try to check out is the Kyoto Stone Circle Archaeological District. It's Eastern Colorado. So all you're going to see, you're unfortunately not going to see any of the teepees here, but you'll see the stone rings that people left behind. And so stone ring studies are really interesting. We know someone, she is from the Northern Arapaho. She's getting her PhD in stone ring statistics, which is a big, big topic, but she's trying to show how her people mathematically did teepees. So it's really, really cool. So that's a very general breakdown of the different time periods mostly in Colorado. So yeah. Take it away, Jess.
Yes. So thank you, Jess. That was a great explanation. So after about 1880 is kind of when all the Europeans came into Colorado. This timeline varies from, what area you're ever. So on the East Coast, like if you're in New York, that's a little bit of a different timeline than here in Colorado. So it really depends on where you are at in the nation as to how this history plays out. So here in Colorado, 1880 is about the timeline that we had Europeans coming in and really, kind of changing some of the ways that we interact with each other. So we're going to talk a little bit about what Jess and I do as archaeologists so that you can understand, what actually this looks like in real life. So we do a lot of project design. We do a lot of creativity interpretation. And sometimes people have, really unique projects that don't necessarily fit something specifically. So we work with them individually to talk about how we can help them bring their project to life. And so Jess and I kind of work in these areas as archaeologists. I will say that not every archaeology job will look like this. So a lot of times in archaeology, you're talking about cultural resource management. So when we say CRM, that's an acronym for cultural resource management, and that's the professional side of archaeology. So if you're thinking right now, like, oh, I would love to be an archaeologist and I want to go to school for this, chances are you're probably going to work in CRM. That's the professional side of archaeology of what you do when you get out of school. So Jess and I, that's where we connected. We were both professional archaeologists. We still are. And we connected about talking about archaeology and bringing it to the public. So in cultural resource management, there's a lot of work with the federal government. So think about if you're ever digging for anything, like if you're digging for a road or to build houses or any sort of development, you're always going to have an archaeologist come in and make sure that you're not going to disturb any sort of cultural resources, right? So when we say cultural resources, we're talking about all the artifacts, the structures, like the cliff dwellings at Mesa Verde, right? Like those types of things. We want to make sure we protect those because that's part of our history and that's part of our story. And we want to make sure that we talk about that and share that with our future generations, right? So like your kids should know about all of this too. And so Jess and I are really passionate about making sure our community knows about all these things. So we have built a business that works a little bit differently than our normal cultural resource management or CRM. And so just know that as we're going through our presentation, this is not necessarily your normal archaeology, but this is archaeology that we should all be doing because it connects all of our history back to us. And that's really, really important. I mean, if we don't connect it back to us, like it doesn't really matter. And so we should really make sure that we're always connecting our history and our archaeology and our story back to humans. It's so important. So we're going to talk about our project that Jess and I have been working on. So if you're not in Colorado, you may not know about this park. But if you are close to Colorado, actually, it's a world famous venue. So you may know, but Red Rocks Park and Amphitheater is a beautiful place down in Colorado, just outside of the Metro Denver area. And they have an amazing natural amphitheater where they hold all kinds of cool concerts and presentations and all kinds of cool stuff. The thing is that Red Rocks Park has never been surveyed for cultural resources. So it's never been looked at for anything that humans have left behind. And that's really important, right? Because this area has so many people. I mean, we're talking about millions of people that come through this area every single year. It's a lot of people. And so if we don't know what's out there, we can't protect it. And, when you have a lot of people going through an area, we have to make sure that these, cultural areas, these archaeological sites are protected so they're not, ruined or vandalized or things like that. So Jess and I are really fortunate to be able to be on this project. And we have gone out last year and we did some survey. So as archaeologists, we do a lot of survey. And what that looks like is us literally like walking the landscape. So we get out there, Jess will be like, like 10, 15 feet down the way from me. And then we walk the landscape and we look at the ground and we're like, hey, do you see anything that humans may have left? Right. And that's what we do. We look at the ground, and if you can look at this picture right here, if you see really closely, you can see there's little pink flags. Do you guys see that? Does anyone see the pink flags in our picture? Let me know. Give me a hand, give me a something. So those little pink flags in our picture are actually marking artifacts. So they're marking things that people have left behind. And that's what we do so that we can make sure that we get a really good picture of what we're looking at. So because artifacts, they can be tiny and it's hard to see them. So if we flag them, then we get a better idea of what we're all about. So we're going to talk a little bit about the history of Red Rocks and the people that made Red Rocks, the structures in Red Rocks. So before we get into this, I want to be really clear. Red Rocks, this area, has been used by Indigenous or Native American people for a very long time. This is a beautiful area with a lot of amazing views, amazing rock formations. And so it's been an important place for a long time for a lot of different people. But really where the amphitheater was built and how that all came to be was with John Brisbane Walker Sr. So you'll see his picture here on the left. He's kind of looking down with his head like this. That's John Brisbane Walker Sr. And he was born in 1847. So that was quite a long while ago. But he had this vision of creating this amazing park in Red Rocks. And he wanted everybody to enjoy all the scenery, all the beautiful rock formations. And so he was like, hey, you know what? We need to come in. We need to make some roads. We need to make some roads in here so people can travel along and see all these beautiful vistas and this beautiful scenery. And so George Ernest Kramer came along and he was like, hey, I'm an engineer. I can do this. And so he actually was really influential on bringing a team together to make all these really cool, amazing things at Red Rocks. So you'll see here in just a minute a picture of the amphitheater at Red Rocks, which is a natural rock theater. And it has amazing sound. It's phenomenal. If you live in or near Colorado or come to visit Colorado, go to Red Rocks. It is fantastic. Your mind is just going to be like, whoa, this is amazing. It is really amazing. So you'll see here, like there's this little cutout picture to the right of where it says post-contact history. There's a little building right there. That's one of the historic buildings that was built like long time ago, like in the 30s, like 1930s, to host people that would come to the park. So they could come to this little building, get refreshments, water, food, things like that, while they were visiting the park. So this park has a really long history of people coming and visiting and checking it out. And so it's really important to talk about the cultural history or the human history that has been here. And one of the reasons Jess and I were so fortunate to get this job is that this park has actually never been surveyed archaeologically, which is kind of a little bit shocking, because it's so popular and it's been used for such a long time. But, we just didn't really understand that we needed to go in there and document all of this until recently. And so this is what Jess and I are doing. So you'll see here on the left, this is an old school picture of what the amphitheater looked like in the 50s. So you'll see some people here sitting up front. There's some rock, here, and you'll see some beautiful rock formations in the back. And what actually happened was that the dude that made all of this, George Cranmer, he actually took a family vacation while this was all going on. He's like, I'm not really sure what we're going to do with this amphitheater. I don't know how we're going to build it. I don't know what we're going to do. And so while he was thinking about all this, he took a family vacation to Taormina in Sicily, which is out in Italy. So it's across the seas. And he found this beautiful amphitheater. So you see the picture here on the right? Doesn't it look really similar to the picture on the left? Looks really similar. So what happened was Cranmer was like, holy cow, this is a beautiful amphitheater. And the sound is amazing. So when he visited the amphitheater with his family, there was a Shakespeare play going on. And the sound from the actors being on stage, it just carried throughout the space and it sounded beautiful. And he was like, listen, we got to recreate this at Red Rocks. And so his inspiration for what we have today is from Sicily, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years ago. And so he recreated this beautiful natural amphitheater. So that's why we're showing these two pictures here, so you can see how they're similar. So that's where Red Rocks, the whole inspiration came from, which I think is pretty cool. So Jess is going to talk to you about who built Red Rocks. Like, how did it actually come to be?
Yeah, so you can see here, there are men building the seats and the steps as well. This picture is from 1930s. Red Rocks was finished being built in 1941. So that's when everybody started coming to see music performed and theater groups happening there. So they're called the Civilian Conservation Corps, or the CCC. And back in the 1930s, 20s into the 30s, the Civilian Conservation Corps, as well as the Works Progress Administration, the WPA, lots of acronyms, I know, they all came together and they had men who didn't have jobs at the time because the Great Depression was happening and the Dust Bowl. A lot of people were without food and without jobs. So the government came together and they said, hey, let's create these two organizations and have them start building things around America. So this is the result of Red Rocks. The entire theater, almost the entire theater, and the entire 649 acres of this entire park, you'll see a map here in a second, were all put together basically. Most of the structures at the park are still what these men built in the 1930s. There's been some additions and some things have been altered, but for the most part, the park was built by these guys. So go to the next slide. This is what they built. Some of the things they built. Of course, they built the amphitheater, which is bottom left. The trading post, which Jasmine just pointed out in that really big picture just a couple slides ago, is up in the top left. And then the bottom right is where all of the workers stayed, which is the CCC camp. And now it's the National Park. Well, it's a Forest Service. It's just different headquarters for different agencies. They're all there. And those buildings are still there, still in use. And it's one of the best CCC camps in the nation. And it's really beautiful to walk into those. So then in the top right, you've got a really big wall that doesn't look that big, but there's probably, Jasmine and I could stand on top of each other probably twice over. So it's very tall, that wall right there. But they put that all together to hold up a road going up to the top of the venue. So top center is a little difficult to see what's going on here, but basically that L shape in the bottom left of that picture, that is what you can see that's not covered in trees of a dam. And all the water from that comes from a spring, and it pumps out 14 gallons a minute. And all of that water used to come from this dam right here. It used to get pumped into the trading post to the left, and that gave all of the water for decades, which was very impressive. You can go to the next slide. Okay, so what Jasmine had been talking about earlier, Cranmer and Brisbane Walker, they wanted to build this beautiful area so that people could take their new automobiles and drive around the park. So this is a map, or basically a blueprint of what the roads would have looked like. And if you see the map to the right, that is exactly what happened. That is the blueprint that came to be. Unfortunately, John Brisbane Walker he didn't get to see this. He passed away in 1931, and the roads were finished well after that. So yeah, that's a little bit about the work and the history behind it. But field work. One of the best things about archaeology is getting to hike with your friends. Basically, that's what you do. So these are some pictures of the field crew that we had. We had Amy Gillespie and Gunnar Bennett. They helped us search around the northern part of Red Rocks, and we had a great time. And we're going to be continuing this project for the next couple of years, just whatever we need to do to finish the entire park. So it's going to be an ongoing project that we hope to have many people join in on.
So
can take this.
Yeah, so from our last season, so we went out in October last year, we found some pretty cool things. So pre-contact, that word means it's before any Europeans came. So when all the Native Americans are in here and we're chilling and having a great time, that's pre-contact. Post-contact, so think about contact as in Europeans contacting indigenous people or Native Americans. That's what that means. So after the Europeans came in from all over Europe, that's post-contact. So Jess and I, when we were out surveying the northern part of the park, we found one pre-contact site, which is kind of crazy. And Jess will talk about that a little bit later. But we found 11 post-contact sites. So what post-contact means, remember, that's when the Europeans came. So that's a little bit more modern history. So if you look at some of the pictures here on this slide, these are some of the artifacts that we found. And we're going to talk about them individually and let you know what each of them means. So we're going to start with the first one, which is amethyst glass. So amethyst glass is a very specific type of glass. It's purple. And because it wasn't just made as purple glass. It actually turns purple through a scientific process. And that's what makes it so significant for us as archaeologists, because it goes back to a certain time period. So if you ever see purple glass like this, and these are just like bottle tops, right? So like where you would put corks in or like put on a lid, that's what you're seeing here. If you ever see glass like this out while you're hiking or in, your who knows, someone's ranch or your lot of land somewhere out, if you see these types of glass, it means that this glass is really old. So back in the day, when they would make glass, it wasn't clear like it is today. Actually, glass has certain minerals and compounds in it that create different colors. And so everyone wanted clear glass. We didn't want yellow glass or green glass or purple glass or whatever. We wanted clear glass. And so what they would do is they would put a certain chemical compound into the glass mixture to make it clear. And when you see purple glass, that means that they were putting in a certain type of chemical called manganese. Manganese was the chemical that would offset all the other colors in the compounds of glass, and it would make it clear. But what they didn't know is that once this glass sits in the sunlight, that manganese chemically interacts with the sunshine and it starts to turn color. And what that color is it's purple. So the darker the purple you see in glass, the more manganese it has. And so you'll see these kind of different variations. So if you see here on the right, this one looks pretty dark purple. On the left, it looks a little bit lighter purple, right? So when these glass makers were doing these mixes, someone put a little bit of less manganese in that right one and a lot more in that left one. And they sat out in the sun for a really, really long time, and they all became purple. And that's how we know that we can date this glass to a certain time period. So when we look at purple glass like this, amethyst glass, sometimes it's called sun-colored glass, sun-colored purple glass. You'll hear all these kind of different terms. It dates to the 1890s to like the 1920s or 30s. And so we know specifically that when we find this glass, people from that era were using it, which is really cool. And so what we look at is, you see this picture here on the right? It's a little looks like a little medicine bottle. That's probably what some of these tops went to. And so we know from doing lots of history and studying that we have certain things that we find that come from different materials. And if we can piece them together, kind of like a puzzle, we can figure out what people were doing. And so we don't have the full vessels for these two tops, but we know that they probably look similar to something like that on the right-hand side. Another really cool object that we found was this knife blade. So it's pretty cool. And if you look really, really closely, right at the bottom where the handle meets the blade, you can see there's some impressed wording there. And if you look up where the circle is going, that's what that wording is. And so we know from finding this knife that it was made between 1928 and 1931. So whoever left it, they were living during that time, because that's when the knife was made. So that's really cool too. So we're going to do a little bit of question and answer here. Okay. So we've got this green piece of glass here. Can anyone have any guesses on what this green piece of glass may have come from? Think about green bottles. What kind of drinks come in green bottles? You can type your response. You can unmute yourself. What do you think? And think about what the words say on there. It looks like we've got a number 7 with an FL, which might mean fluid. We've got, it looks like at the very bottom, it looks like it even says Colorado. What do you think? Where do you think this little piece of glass came from? A wine or beer bottle. Yep. Okay. Basically alcoholic or maybe medicine. That's a really good guess. Does anyone else have any guesses? Thank you, Megan.
No.
A wine bottle. Okay, that's good. Yeah, wine bottles do have this type of really deep green color. That's a really good guess. Good job, Brenna. Brenna? I think that's right. Brenna. Cool. So I'm going to show you guys what this actually is. Maybe. Here we go. Okay. Do you recognize this? Does anyone recognize 7-Up? So this is a really old school little piece of glass from a 7-Up bottle. This bottle was minted probably in the 1930s, 1940s. So if you look here, you'll see the LIKKES. That is this part on the bottle. It says, "You like it, it likes you." So when we were doing research out at Red Rocks, we found this little tiny little piece of glass, but it had writing on it, and it has a very distinctive color of green. Actually, in archaeology, this color of green is called 7-Up green because 7-Up was known to use this specific color in their soda bottles. And so what's really cool is that they had different mints around the nation. And one of their mints to make this glass bottle was in Denver, Colorado. And what's really neat is that we were able to see that Colorado right here at the very edge of that piece of glass, which helped us date it. And so we know because of this little piece of glass that people were here at Red Rocks in the 1930s and 1920s. And that's how we use archaeology to talk about what people were doing in certain places. So they were probably enjoying a really nice 7-Up at some point. All right, this is another really cool piece. So I actually did a ton of research on this and it took me forever, but I found it because it's hard to see here. All right, so you'll see like it's the Pepsi, but it's not the full, it's like just the PSICO in this little piece of glass right here. But what that ends up lining up to is on this bottle, you see it says PepsiCo with this really amazing embossing. And that's what actually gave me the clue that this was this bottle, because it has this really cool embossing on it. And we just don't see that very often. And so sometimes when you're looking at artifacts, you got to look at all the little details to see if you can match it up to something that you know. And so this bottle was also made in about the 1930s, 1940s. And so just from this little tiny piece of glass, we can tell a lot about what people were doing at Red Rocks. And what they were doing is they were having a good time. They're drinking their Pepsis, they're drinking their 7-Ups. They were having a great ass time. So, all right. So what was not present? Jess is going to talk to you about this.
I do want to ask really quick, Katie, do we have time? I know we've just hit the 7:30 mark, so can we continue on or should we wrap up?
Keep on going. And Girl Scouts, if you have other commitments you need to get to, feel free to say goodbye to us now. And the recording will be up on our YouTube channel, so you won't miss the ending.
Wonderful. Okay. Thank you so much. So as Jasmine was saying, what was not present, unfortunately, the lithics, which mean rock, the rocks that indigenous groups would break down to get arrowheads, spear points, different types of tools that they would use to eat. Most of these, except for pretty much these two artifacts right here, most have been just taken from the park. A lot of people back in the late 1800s, early 1900s would come and they would picnic. As we've seen, there's plenty of Pepsi bottles and 7-Up bottles. So people are picnicking in the area and they're enjoying the views. And as they do that, they go on small little hikes to places where people, the indigenous people, had left some of their tools, and they would just take them into their cars and take them home. So many, many, many artifacts at Red Rocks, unfortunately, we don't have what we call context for. We can't tell the complete story of Red Rocks because we do not have many of the tools, unfortunately. Only some of them like these. So you can go to the next slide. And
I believe, Jess, do you want to talk about how important it is to leave artifacts where you found them?
Yeah. I mean, like many, many agencies around the world, we're all really pushing to, if you find something, even the Pepsi Cola bottle, even glass, there's a lot of cans out there. Anything you find, take a bunch of pictures, take all the pictures you want, but please put that artifact back down where you found it. That is what we do. We take pictures, we record things with our GPS units. We send it all to a large database across the state. Yeah. And that is the best way to go about things so that future archaeologists, future people can tell stories and know what happened around them. So yeah, that is a little bit about that. The interesting things that we found at Red Rocks so far have been tributaries, all these random things where you think that nobody's there or has ever walked on this land in this little area. And lo and behold, you find a little Buddha statue in the center there. People leave little like seashell stuff, a memorial to their mom on the left. So a lot of these things do get moved out of the park now by rangers. They come in and they clean the park to maintain its integrity, maintain its beauty. But people just like you and I, we're all leaving things behind, as we were talking about in the first few slides. We were leaving many things. So if this stuff never got moved and in 50 years it was still there, technically it would be archaeology. So just something to think about. Okay, cool. So that's a lot about archaeology, but what we're doing, or Red Rocks, but what we're doing at Red Rocks, yes, we are doing the archaeological survey and walking to see what we find, but we're also bringing in an educational piece, which is really, really fun. So we're going to talk about a company that we're working with called Factor Earth. We're going to be doing an on-site program for the youth, and then we have a really fun event coming up that we hope that everybody can attend because it's for you. So that is the gist of what we're going to talk about in a second. So Jen. Okay, so Factor Earth. Factor Earth is basically it's not an app, but it's on your phone. It's completely free. If you scan this QR code here, it will take you to the website. And you can go and explore many, many different places all around Colorado from the comfort of your home or wherever you are with your phone. So it takes you into a bunch of 360s basically, and you're allowed to like see different pictures and compare the historic photos to present day things. And it's really, really fun. So we're taking the Red Rocks adventure from everything that we found so far at Red Rocks, and we're revamping it. So there is a current Red Rocks experience, but we're going to switch it up a little bit and add a lot of what you've already seen here today, and plus a little more from what we're finding here soon.
Jess, isn't there different adventures on there right now? There's a lot from all over Colorado, right?
I didn't hear you.
Oh, it cut out. I think there's like 10 different adventures or something on Factor Earth right now.
I'm pretty sure there's like 20 now.
Oh, wow.
I'm on it right now, actually, as you're both talking about it, and there's a lot on here.
Great. Awesome.
Yeah, really neat.
Cool. Okay. Yeah. So it's great.
It's really fun. And if you can find a turtle in some of those adventures, it gets you some bonus points. So look for the turtle. His name is Cody. Okay, so our youth programming. The site where we found the Pepsi Cola, the 7-Up, the knife, it's right where I am in this top left picture. It is going to be our teaching site. So there's a lot of stuff there, but there's not enough there to make it like a big site that we want to save. So we are going to be able to use this site, which is so cool because it's really big. It's very accessible. You can see there's a road just in the top right there, center right, I guess. And we're going to have school-age children from around Denver come to the site to explore and survey with us. So it's going to be super fun. But prior to the exploration with us in the field, this bottom right image it's from Western Aerial Imagery, and it's from a drone. So my partner, my boyfriend, he has this drone company, and they go around and they can create models of different landscapes, and then they can show you what what different ways you want to survey and the best places to excavate and such. So this was an excavation that happened in 2019. So this is not at Red Rocks, but this is an example of what drone work can help us show the youth how we survey, what places are best to survey, and on and on. Then on top of that, we're going to be doing mock digs, which is the 2 pictures to the bottom left. We take bins full of dirt and there's hidden artifacts in there that kids get to dig in. Really, really fun, even for adults. Jasmine and I have definitely partaken in this more than once. And then to the very top, that point right there, that is one of the points from a pre-contact site near Red Rocks. We are going to take points just like that, and we are going to make plastic casts so that when the kids come to Red Rocks and they explore for International Archaeology Day and for this programming as well, they can hold the points that are very, very old. Remember when I said it was about 10,000 years old? Some of these points are going to be about that old, which is really cool. Okay, so that's a little bit about what we're doing, and we've got some really cool stuff coming up. So Jasmine can tell you more about that.
Oh my gosh. So, okay, I'm sorry. For some reason, the formatting on our slide didn't translate very well. This is supposed to say International Archaeology Day. That's what it's supposed to say. So Jess and I were so fortunate. We were asked last year to run this amazing event called International Archaeology Day. So if you're not in Colorado, come on to Colorado. We're going to have a great, great time. We're holding it October 21st from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. out at Red Rocks Park. So what we were just talking about, we're actually going to hold this event there. So you'll get to see all of this amazing scenery. It's beautiful out there. But International Archaeology Day was actually started probably like almost a decade ago or more by the American Institute of Archaeology. And it's really a day, they actually celebrate kind of the whole month of October, but there's a specific day that they really honor to talk about archaeology, history, culture, all the great things that we study as archaeologists. And so they really promote different, parks or organizations to have activities and events to involve people in history and archaeology. And so International Archaeology Day has been going on here in Colorado for the past 11 years. This year is our 12th year, and Jess and I were asked to run the event because the previous organizers are retiring, they're ready to move on and do different things. And so we're here to start this event, and Katie has her hand up. So Katie, yes, can I answer your question?
No, I was actually did the clapping emoji. Congratulations.
Oh, I thought it was like the hand raising. Okay, yes. Thank you, Katie. Thank you so much. Yeah. So this is really exciting. We are going into our 12th year. We are, or 11th year? Wait, 12th year. 11th year? Okay. Anyway.
11.
Okay, sorry. 11th year. And we are super excited because we're going to talk about archaeology from all different cultures. So we're not just going to talk about Colorado archaeology. We're going to talk about archaeology from all over the world. We're going to bring in Israeli partners. We're going to bring in partners from South America. We're going to bring in Austrian partners, so people from Germany and Austria. It's going to be really, really cool. So some of these pictures, oh, Jess, go ahead.
Sorry, the Northern Arapaho, they're bringing in a teepee demonstration. So they will build the teepee there, and then we all get to go in and explore, and they'll tell stories and show how life was like in the teepee as well. So sorry, just had to interrupt and tell you.
Oh yeah, no, thank you. That's such a cool thing. We're also having some Native American people come and do their artwork. So it's called Earth Colors. And so they actually collect natural ingredients from the environment, and then they use those to make colors for their art. And then they, do these beautiful art pieces. And so we've got all kinds of different people interacting, different cultures. You can see here in the pictures, we've got tables set up. So everyone gets to come around and interact with different activities, different artifacts, things like that. We also have lecturers that come in and talk about all kinds of different archaeology topics. So you'll see here on that second part of the pictures on the bottom left, there's someone talking there with like a little PowerPoint presentation. So we always have speakers come in and talk about really cool archaeology stuff. So Jess and I are really into building archaeology with the community. It's all about the community because all of this history is ours. It's not just yours. It's not just mine. We all share this collectively. And it's really, really important that we talk about different cultures in our history because that's what makes us American, right? It's this beautiful mixing of all these different cultures that are coming together. And so we're really going to highlight this year with International Archaeology Day. So we would love for you to come. Definitely, if you want some more details, you can check out our website, which we got some information here. But please come. It's all free. It's from 9 a.m. to 3. You get to come and just hang out. We're going to have food trucks. We're going to have a little mini beer garden for the adults out there. And it's going to be great. So it's going to be awesome. The other thing that we want to talk to you about is really how to get involved with archaeology, right? So if you're out there and you're like, man, this is really cool, but like, what do I do as a kid or what do I do as an adult to like get more into this? These are some really cool ways to do that. So we talked about Factor Earth, which Jess mentioned, and we can definitely send out that link for you all as well. But there's so many cool places to explore in Colorado through that. We have International Archaeology Day, which I just mentioned. Jess and I on our website, we've been building virtual courses for you. So right now we have a virtual course on Obsidian in South Park, which is located in Fairplay, Colorado. They've got some really cool artifacts and archaeology out there. So we've been working with them and we're actually going to be creating a new course here this year. So definitely stay tuned for that. We've got Jess is an amazing tour guide and she does some awesome historic tours of Metro Denver. So if you're in the Denver area or coming to visit, please look us up. We do some really fun summer tours just about the history of Denver and what's been going on here. We also, all over the nation, we have local historical and archaeological societies, and they are such a great way to get involved with your local history. And they always have events and meetings and things going on, usually every single month. And so if you're really interested in learning more about archaeology, I would highly recommend tuning into those types of societies in your state. The last thing, this is Colorado. So if you're not in Colorado, I'm sorry. You might be able to still get some information from this, but it's PAC. So the Program for Avocational Archaeologist Certification, you have to be 15 or older, but they'll put you through a whole program here in Colorado that will give you all the basic skills of being an archaeologist. So you can like come and volunteer for digs and things like that. And people know that you're qualified to do that work. Of course, you want to go to schooling and things like that if you want to become a professional. But this is just kind of like if you're interested and want to do a little hobby archaeology, this is a great program to look into so that you can come out and do digs with us and things like that. So those are some things to get involved. We also have some other opportunities, like archaeologist is one job in a whole realm of jobs of cultural resources. So one of the options is you could become a teacher. You get your PhD and teach archaeology or history or anthropology. You can go into cultural resource management, which is what Jess and I have talked about most of the time. That's kind of the more professional side of archaeology. You can work in museums. You can do forensics. So if you guys ever watch those like crazy mystery TV shows where they go in and study the bones and all that stuff, that's definitely part of anthropology, which is anthropology is kind of like the umbrella, right? So if you think of an umbrella, there's things that happen down under the umbrella. Anthropology is the umbrella and archaeology is just one of those things. There's lots of different ways you can get involved with studying humans. There's also conservation, like historic conservation, historic preservation. There's advocacy. So you can get involved in lobbying and politics for cultural resources. Really, anthropology is that umbrella. So really anything that goes underneath that is all about cultural resources. And archaeology is just one of those things that you can do. So here's our information. That QR code will take you right to our website. We are very active on social media. So if you're on Facebook or Instagram, we're not quite on TikTok yet because, it's just, I love you all, but man, TikTok is like yeah, it's difficult. So if you have any suggestions, send them our way. But we're really active on Facebook and Instagram. We always talk about archaeology, what we're doing, projects coming up, events that you can get involved in. You've got our email addresses, our phone numbers. Please contact us. We would love to hear from you, answer any questions that you have. Yeah, and that's pretty much it for us. So we're going to open it up to anyone that has questions about our presentation or archaeology. We'd love to answer them for you.
Yes, thank you for having us. We're so excited to be here. So thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you both. I've just been on my Facebook on my phone so I could connect with you there. It's like, wow.
Yay, thank you.
I will be a follower. I'm so
awesome.
There, that's better. A little too bright. Thank you so much. This was absolutely fabulous. And Girl Scouts, do you have any questions? I know you answered mine. Mine was like, what if I find something? What do I do with it? Do I call you?
Actually, we do have, so if you go to our main website, you can scroll down. We have an artifact identifier, which is just like a little mobile guide to help you like identify if you found an artifact, like what do you do with it? It's Colorado based, but it pretty much applies to every state. Every state has a state archaeologist and national park people. So if you're ever out in the park or, out on land, you can always call those people in your state and tell them you found something. And that's really the best way to take care of our history for sure. That's a good question, Katie.
Yeah. Because I do a lot of hiking and I think I'm going to be looking now.
I know.
Normally I'm looking up at the sky and the trees and not down at the ground.
It's very hard for archaeologists to, Jasmine actually just posted about this. When we hike, we do not look up anymore. There's so much stuff on the ground that we don't want to miss anything. So if we're trying to go on a leisurely hike, we're probably not going to be looking up.
I actually missed my turn on my leisurely hike and took another 1.5-mile detour because I was looking at the ground. So don't do that.
Does anybody else have any questions?
Awesome.
Yeah, thank you
so much. We're good.
And awesome. I will make sure that I'll be sending an email out to all the registered emails for the program tonight. I know some girls couldn't show up because I got some email saying, will this be recorded so I can watch it later? So I gave them that information. And I'll make sure in that email that I send all the links for everything that you presented so that they have access to archaeological day and anything else that you want to include, you can just let me know and I'll make sure that I pass it along.
Great. Thank you, Katie.
Thank you.
Awesome.
Yeah. All right, Girl Scouts. Hope you had a great night and lots of inspiring information for you. And maybe we'll see you out in the field looking for things and at the day in October.
Definitely.
Thank you.
We look forward to it. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.